Get started with our very first simple yet interactive React Native application, a photo gallery application. Okay. So in today's video, what we are going to do is we are going to learn about the basics of React Native. We're going to compare how React Native is different with React. Just a brief introduction about all these. Then we'll proceed what are REST APIs as we are going to use this in our application. And then we'll finally proceed to our application. Okay. So let's get started. The very first topic is what is React Native. So many of you have learned about React and know about React.js already using them on a full scale. But what actually the React Native is? See, React.js is just a library developed by Meta, previously known as Facebook, and it is quite popular nowadays. But React Native is just like a framework created with that application, which is mainly used to develop applications for Android, Android TV, iOS, Mac OS, tvOS, web, Windows, and UW. So it enables the developers to perform some extraordinary capabilities with React.js, using React.js as a language in a sophisticated environment so that we generate an application for all types of softwares, all types of operating systems. So basically the React Native is having a motto like write code once, run it everywhere. So you write code once on a platform, let's say Expo platform, and you compile them into a bundle packages of APK, PKG, run it on an Android, on an iOS. So you don't need a separate developers or separate stacks to develop these two applications, which are depicting the same stack or same point. Okay. Now, how React is different with React Native? So initially, the React is a JavaScript library. As I said, it is a library which you need to import into your application. Then you can use its functionalities. But React Native is just a framework you made using those libraries. Okay. So in the React, you can just create a skeletons. You can create the components. You can create everything for your apps. But React Native is the thing where you compile those, bring them into the action, and actually see them working in a real-time environment. Okay, so there are very features of React Native. We have a faster development, as I said, that if you want to develop your business application on a full scale, you don't need to go ahead for looking for a developers for your Android application and for your iOS application. Let's say you're developing your application for these two environments. Okay, and it is easy to maintain. Why? Because you can use the Redux. Redux is the thing which will help you to use. I'm sorry. Redux is the thing which will help you to manage your states moving around in application. Okay. Reusable components, as it is using the React.js, it knows that how to reuse the components, how to keep them into action, how not we will just reiterate anything, uh, how will not duplicate the things. Okay. And of course, if it is getting React as a skeleton, it is getting a community of JavaScript too. So it has enormous libraries to support the app development process, make the lives of the developers easy. And also it is cost effective. Why? You just need to hire one developer and it is going to work for every type of OS environment. So you, as a business, you don't go looking for several developers or several operating systems. All right. Now, we are going to learn about the Expo platform, as we are going to use this platform for today's video. So we're not going to do any hardcode setup on our computers to run our first React Native application. We're going to make it using an online editor, and Expo provides us very good. Let me take you through the tour of this Expo. Just give me a second. So this is the website of Expo, expo.dev. Here you can come and you can just create a snack for yourself. Just go ahead, create a snack, and you're free to go. On the right-hand side, you can see you can test your application on iOS, Android, or web browsers. Also, you can add your own emulator devices over here. On the right hand side, as you see any code editor, you have your own file section. Then you go ahead, write the codes inside this sections. All right. So, all right. So this is what we have as an Expo. Here it is a dummy code, which is depicting nothing but the thing you're seeing inside this uh, emulator, I can say. Okay. So this is the Expo platform. It is really a good platform if you're into a React Native as a beginner. If you don't want to go ahead with the hardcode setups and all these kind of things, then you can just jump to the Expo website, explore it, try writing your codes, and see them in action side by side. Okay, so we'll track it how it is going to work. All right. So here now comes our application, the photo gallery application. So it is very a simple application. We'll not make any rocket science over here. What we will do is we can just add a bunch of photos. We can just borrow a bunch of photos from already live APIs. There are hundreds of live APIs already present inside the internet. So we're just going to have one API and then we'll call the API according to our needs. We'll get the data. We'll see how to get the data. We'll see how to process the data into a readable format and how to show that data into interactive user interface. Okay. So before going towards our application, the very first question is what is API? Or specifically, we are talking about REST API. So what is a REST API? Okay. So anyone here can tell me what is an API? All right. Perfect. So what we are going to do is, just give me a second. Allow me a second for that. Okay, so API stands for Application Programming Interface. So you have your application hosted somewhere. You are doing a development. You require data. See, in application, the most important thing is nothing but a data, right? Uh, Application is all about how you control the data, how you fetch the data, how you display the data, and how you make changes with your data. So when some services connect your application to a data server, which will help you to modify, read, update, or do any operations on the data, is known as application programming interface. Okay. So REST API, basically it stands for REST API basically stands for representation state transfer, in which we actually request some servers to take for the data, and then when we get the data, we convert them into a readable format so that we can just do some meaningful operations with the data. Okay, so I hope the introductions are quite well. You understand everything till now. Now let's jump into the application and let's see how we are going to create our very first application from the very start. So as I said, I'll come to the Expo platform. I'll just remove all of the dummy codes over here, which is present inside the app.js. And the very first thing I'm going to go here is I'm going to import React. As we are using React, so I'm just going to import a React here. All right. I've just imported the React library. And then I'm just going to create a function as we all do in React application. I'm going to create a function app and it's going to return. Okay. When we make a React JS application, what we do is we use HTML divs or HTML paragraph or HTML elements to depict our data. But when we come to a React native application, some things are different. Not all the things, but something changes. That what makes it a framework, right? So for paragraph we use in our HTML application, here we use text. So we have a text inside our package known as React Native. So I'm just going to import that. And I'm just going to create a text over here, which will be a very simple application that hello world. It will just depict a simple text, hello world. All right. And then we'll just export our default application. Okay. So as you see, you can see the implementation of my program side by side. So it just say hello world, nothing else. Okay. Now, first we go ahead. I'll tell you how the flow is going to be. So we are going to create some components so that it would be a reusable program. We're not going to just go ahead and we are not just going to go ahead and do everything hard coded. Of course, we are going to make a reusable component. Okay. So we're going to make 3 components in our program. Basically, the header, where we are creating that header type of thing in our application. Let me show you. Yeah, this my photo gallery header. So we'll create a separate component for that, of course. The next component we are going to create is the gallery, how we will how we will fetch the photos from the API we are using, how we will convert that into a readable format, and how we will show into a interactive UI. And third component, we are going to make a photo like you see in our application. If you see, these photos are really molded in rich interface. Okay, so we are going to create a separate component for this particular type of thing. So how a single photo is taken, how the author name is taken, how they are molded, and how they are then presented inside the second component, which we are going to use for this particular section. Okay, and all of those components are going to be imported over here in the app.js, and we'll see the implementation side by side. Okay, so let's get started. The very first thing we are going to do is we are going to make our header. So inside the components, I'm just going to go and create a new file, app header.js. Here also, the very first thing we are going to do is we are going to import React. Okay. The next thing we are going to do is we have a header library already inside our React Native elements. Okay, so we'll just call those libraries and customize them according to our needs. Okay, so let's first import that. As I said, the library is header with H capital. React Native elements. All right. Again, as a simple thing, we're going to create a function. Since we are going to just say export default here itself, and we'll name the function as app header. All right. So our function should return something, and it will return nothing but a empty header over here. Okay. So of course, nothing is going to change. And since you see, it is giving us an error in React Native elements because we haven't imported that package. If we would be doing this in local server, we would have to download this application. But as you see, the Expo is a very brilliant platform, which will simply allow us to add dependency by clicking over here. And if you go to the package.json, it is going to add the dependency over there. Okay. Since we know we also need one more header file over here, that is React Native paper, and I'm going to use the version 3.6.2. So this is the version I'm going to use. I think. All right. Okay. So we do have this dependency, and we do need React safe area context so that our application is going to work fine. All right. So let's come back to our app header.js, and let's come back to app.js. Let's import this particular application from there. import app header from components app header. And I'll simply show it right over here. App header. Okay. So you see, it says no safe area value available for the safe area provider. Okay. I think I should change the version of React Native paper application, and this thing will work fine. All right. Let's see why this error is coming. All right. Let's look into this error. Let me just look at this error and let me just solve this for you. We do use the safe area context. It's still saying no safe area value available. Make sure you're rendering safe area provider at the top of your application. Let's try. Let's do this. Let's try to wrap our application into safe area provider. Okay. Let's import a safe area provider. I think this will help our application to work fine. Provider, and I think this is inside our application. This is inside the package named as, yeah, safe text. I hope this will work fine. Then I'll just wrap our application. So let's say area provider. And yeah, it's working fine now. So cool. At least the error is solved. Now see, it is showing you the empty header because of course we haven't customized it till now. So of course we are expecting an empty header over here, but we are going to do a couple of things right here. The very first thing is I don't like this bluish background color, so I'm just going to change it using a background color property. I like, since let's look at our application, it is a greenish color. I think I remember the code for this. So 03 A1. I hope this is the color. Yeah. Okay. So background color is working perfectly fine. Then inside this, first of all, let me brief you towards the header platform, header package from React Native Elements. It has three components. Whether you want to show your app, text in the left hand side of the component, in the right hand side of the component, or in the center of the component. So if you want to show it right on the left hand side, we go ahead with the left side component. If we go ahead with the right hand side component, then it is going to show us the every content is going to be shown on the right side. But we are going to go ahead with the center component, and this is the heading of our application. It should be centered. So I'll just simply call a center component, and inside this, I'm going to give a couple of JSON key value pairs. So first of all, I'm going to show a text. I'll call this text as photo gallery app. Most probably it will show. Yeah, and now I'm going to customize this text a little bit. So I'll just use the style component for that. I'll just make the color as white. Okay, just okay. Yeah, since this is not a JSON format, so I guess color I'm just going to pair it with the white color. Next thing I want a little bit bolder, so want to wait. I'm just going to change it to bolder. Okay, let's increase the size. So next property I'm going to go with font size, touch. Okay, let's quite fine. Let's change the font family. Let's add a twist to cursor. Cool. I hope it looks fine. Pretty similar to our application over here. Okay, good. All right, so this is our header. If you do have any doubts, we'll wait for a second. Just add your doubts inside the chat. And, okay, there is one doubt. Repeat REST APIs. Okay, so what do you want me to repeat about the REST APIs, the whole concept, or do you have any specific doubt inside it? Please drop your text over here. Okay, so if since you are not important, she is not responding. So let's go ahead with a quick introduction about the REST APIs, quick overview what REST APIs are. So as I said, API stands for application programming interface. Okay, so how do you communicate with your server with and just communicating and just like fetching the data, updating the records? How do you do these kind of things using your application to the database is done through the APIs. And talking about the REST APIs, in this, we just create a state as React is familiar, like famous for state. So how do we do that? Like we just create a state for every particular updation or every particular uh, thing we are doing inside an application. Let's say it is a fetching of database, it is updating it, get request, post request, whatever it is, we just create a normal state for that. And using that state, we communicate to our database. Using that state, we communicate to our database, and this is what the REST APIs are. Okay. All right. Perfect. So now we are going to go ahead the main part of our application, like how to call an API, how to gather the data from API, and how to convert that data into a representable format. So of course, I said I'll create a new component for that. I'm just going to name that component as, let's say, gallery.js. Okay. Also, the very first steps we're going to do very quickly. And next thing is we're going to create a function gallery, and we're going to export this function by default. So export default function gallery. Let's return simple text over here. So let me just import the text from React elements. React here. Just simply show a text over here. This is page Let's see if it is working fine. Let's import that. Okay, saving an error. Okay, yeah, this we just used parentheses instead of using the curly braces. All right, default. Sorry, I'll just ask your apologies for the spelling mistakes. Just import gallery from components gallery.js, and I can just show that gallery component here. Okay, it's working fine. So let's now count down the steps what we are going to follow. So the first step is we are going to make use of XIS package to call our API. So this is the very first step. We'll just make the use of package, and we will store. The second step is whatever the data we are going to get from the API, we'll store that data into a state. So we're going to create a state, of course, over here, and we'll store all of the data we are going to get from the API. The third thing is we are going to convert the data in a representable format. Okay, and at last, we'll just call next component which we are going to define for our photos. So we'll call that component, we'll pass our data, our required props into that component, and then we'll finally represent our data. So we'll finally represent our data. So these are the 4 steps we're going to follow. Sorry, just a second. Yeah. Okay, so very first thing I'm going to do is, first of all, I have some props over here. Why I need props? What is like, why do we need prop over here? Why? Because we are going to call our application. Oh, sorry, call our API. We're going to get the data. We're going to manage the data using our state. And then we are also going to call another particular component for which will require some properties or something which will change our data. So what I'm going to say is, let me just, you understand. So first of all, we'll make a state. For state, we'll need a use state hook, which is inbuilt hook in the React. Let me call it as data. Then the callable function would be set data. Initially, it is nothing but an empty array because it doesn't have any data. But for now, okay. As I said, we are going to import XIS also for calling our API. And since XIS is a package, we are going to add it into our dependency right here. Okay. Make use of XIS package. All right. Well, when we'll just make the use of XIS package to call our API, then we can be adding this into our package.json. So, okay. Also, we need a use effect over here. So why do we need a use effect? Like, anyone can help me understand why do we need a use effect over here? What will the use effect do in terms of calling our API? Okay. Uh, since let me just go ahead. Let's not waste time. So we need use effect to track any of the changes in our application. Okay. So if our application changes in any aspect, we are going to use the use effect hook to track the changes. All right. So since we are calling an API may change the data as per our needs, as per our arguments, or as per our props. So each and every time the API is changing the data, we need to refresh our application or refresh the state we made in our application and update it to the latest value. Okay, so this is the first thing we need use effect for. So let's create a use effect over here. How do we do that? We just create a function inside this and along with the dependency array. Initially, I'm keeping this dependency array as an empty because we don't have nothing to track the changes which are static in an application. So we don't have any variable, we don't have any state we made to track the changes in our application. We just have data which will automatically update as long as the API is getting updated. So I'll just call the exis and I'm going to use the get function to get the data. Okay, so we are going to use the unsplash API. So let me just give you a brief introduction about Unsplash API. So it is a pre-image platform which provides you an API to register your to ask for your data inside your application. Okay, so I do already have an account on Unsplash. I have created one client ID, but I'll tell you how I'm breaking this particular API URL. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead with the base URL of our application, that is https and api.unsplash.com. So this is a base of our application where we are basically of our API where we are requesting the data from. And secondly, what we are requesting photos. Thirdly, what we are requesting random photos. So we don't have anything specific. Like it's not like food, we are requesting for food photos, we are requesting for restaurant photos, we are requesting for nature photos. No, for now, I'm keeping it very simple. We are requesting random photos. And also we are requesting a particular count. Let's say having a count of 20. So I'm requesting only 20 photos from Unsplash website using the API. Of course, if we are using any API, it provides you with a specific key, uses client key, API key, whatever you call it as. In this case, we are going to call it as client key. And this key specifies how many requests made per hour on this API and how it is getting fetched and how it is getting controlled as per single user. So once you go ahead with the API of Unsplash, API website of Unsplash, register over there, create your client key, and then you will be able to request any data from the Unsplash website. Okay. So till now, what I've done, I've created the base URL. Then I'm requesting photos, random photos, and I'm requesting only 20 photos from this API. Okay. And finally, I'm going to pass my client ID. And I have it noted it somewhere. Let me just copy and paste it from there. So this is my randomly generated client ID. Okay. So what I did till now, I use the XIS to get data from this API. But what after I get the data? Then I need to handle something and I need to create something that handle the response also. So first I called XIS using the get function. I got the data and then I'm just going to handle a response inside a function. So let me just press enter dot then, and then inside this, I'm going to create a function which will handle the response. So let me just create a stress variable over here to handle the response. So what happens is once I'll run this application, it will go to XIS. I hope this should work fine. Okay, let's see. It will go to XIS. It will take this API URL, follow this API URL, whatever the data it will get from here, it will come back and store that inside this res variable. Now I need to decode this data so that I can just have this data inside our application represented as I want. Okay. So since I created an array, data is an array. So of course, I'm expecting an array over here, right? Let's see what does it returns. Let's hit this API on our browser. Let's see what does it returns. If you really see, it returns an array of JSON objects, which have a plenty number of things. It's really difficult to see how many things are here, but I can see ID over here, some of the descriptions of image, and the URL of image itself, full URL, then some links, regular image, small image, thumb size image, different size of images, the color of image, the height of image, the width of image. All these properties are returned by this API. Okay, so I'm just going to map this response which I got, the response array, inside the data array. Okay, how I'm going to do that? Let's see. First of all, I'll say res dot data dot map. Okay, and then inside this, I'm going to create a simple unit which will this unit will it will describe a single object from this array. So of course, it is fetching 20 images. So every image has its own JSON object, and that single JSON object is handled by this unit. Okay, so I'll call this set data. Okay, and inside this set data, now I need to decode that object also. First, what I did, I decoded that array. I used the map function to decode that array, and I created a unit to represent a single JSON object. So what I'm talking about is single this thing. So to I see, but give a normal try to decode this, comes something around. Let's do the ID. Fetch. The next ID starts from here, I think. Yeah. So this is something which I'm getting up to here. This is something which I'm getting from one object. This is basically stored by this unit. And now to get this data, get the data, required data from this particular object, I need to decode this particular object too. So I need to decode this unit too. So for that, I'll just create previous state. And this previous state is nothing but an object itself, but an array. This object is going to be decoded into an array of these whole data. Okay. So I'm just going to have a previous state over here. Then yeah, this is a function. Go ahead. Let's create an arrow function. And inside this, I'm just going to map our previous state with our unit. Okay. And then also for our convenience, I would like to console log the data which I'm getting. So res dot data. Let's see how does it work. Fine. If I retry this, what's happening here? Unable to resolve module exercise.js. Why? Why is it unable? Let's give a star over here. Hope this will work fine. I dribble forward. Gallery.js. I don't get any iterable property. Number 18. Okay. Let's log this data outside our function. Something around here. Let's keep it really simple, like this. And the unit over here. Then simply let's log the data into the console. I hope this will work fine. Okay. Now it is giving us the error saying 10 unexpected token, comma, but I didn't have any comma. Really don't know if it is arising, but let's look into this error. Let's do one thing. Let's not console log the data anymore. Let's keep it simple. Let's come out of this function, whole function. Let's console log the data right here. Even this function. Right here. I think this will now work fine. Okay. Let's look into our log console. And I think, yeah, we are getting the data over here. If you really see whatever the data we are seeing inside this browser tab, we can now see into the console. I'll just make it a little bit bigger so that you can just look into the data, which is really beautified with this console. So we're having an ID here, updated at, promoted at. Okay. What we need from here? Okay, we need something, the image, and let's use the regular image for our application, because we'll not go with a very large image, we'll not go with a very small image, we'll stick to the regular part. And the next thing we need is, if you look at our application, we need an image and we need an name. So where we can find the name of our author, user, and then here it is a name. It says Tua Haftiva something. Okay. So we got the data, and the data is now stored inside this response. All right, perfect. Now we are going to convert this data into a representable format. Okay. So how we are going to do that? Of course, we are going to use another component to style a particular photo, which particular image we are getting from the API, the particular name. We'll just pass the raw data inside that component, and there we will style the whole image, single image. So this single point is going to be styled over here, and then we call that into our gallery function, and then we'll finally render it over here. So let's first go inside the component and let's create a new file. I'll just call it as photo.js because it is associated to single photo. The very first steps, first thing first. Let's import a couple of things I need. So you already know about the text. I told you text is nothing but the paragraph, like paragraphs in HTML. We'll use view. View is like divs in HTML. I hope you are comfortable with divs. And so we are going to use the style sheet. This is a package which handles all the CSS stylings, pretty much similar as we do in our CSS. And we need image to display the actual image. Because what we are getting over here is nothing but, okay, first let me just do this thing. And what we are getting over here is not an actual image, but the URL of that image. If we really look over the console over here, we are getting URL of regular images. Now we need to convert this URL into an actual image, and I think this image uh, package is going to help us a lot. So let's create an export default function. I'll call it as photo itself, and it is taking some props. Of course, it will take some props because we are going to pass from our previous component. Now here, first of all, I'll just call it return. Simply make a view to wrap it. V is capital, view to wrap it. And inside this view, I'm just going to create a text. Photo component. All right. Let's see if it is working fine. Let's import it over here. Photo from photo.js, and let's go. Yeah, it works perfectly fine. Okay, now let's come back to here and let's first of all what the two things we are getting. We are getting a link of our image and we are getting the username. So let's create two variables here. Let URL, and from props I'm going to call that as link of the photo. Simple. And the next thing is photographer name. So I'm just going to call it as photographer name, and then props. I'm just going to give name as a prop. Okay. These things are working fine. And then create, I have already created a view. Here, I'll just call this image component. Inside this, source would be nothing but it is going to take a URI. Since it is going to convert this URI, go to this URL, then extract the image from here and then show the image. That's what the function of image component is. And the URI is getting from this URL variable. Okay. And the next thing I'm going to show is nothing but a text. And text is nothing but show photographer name. Hope it will work fine for now. Let's pass. Okay, so we are passing two components inside the photo. Okay. First of all, I'll pass this link, manual link inside this. Again, let's copy this. Really difficult to copy it from here, but let me just give it a try. Okay, because first thing I'm going to do is URL, passing a URL here, or I call it as link, right? This is nothing but this link. I'll just remove this extra quotes. Okay, and the next thing I'm going to pass name. I'll just pass a simple name, a hard-coded name. Let's say John Doe. Okay, so this should work fine. What we did is, let's call it, and oh, okay, we never closed this image tab. So it is not showing us the image since we passed the URI also, but at least we are going to see the name. It means our components, our props working fine for an extent. I hope there is some error with this URI, whatever it would be. Now, the very second thing we are going to do is we are going to talk about the list. How do we show that images into this kind of list? One after another, two into a row, and then number of rows. Okay, so how do we do that? First of all, we are going to learn about the scroll view. Scroll view is a component inside the React Native. And secondly, we are going to learn about the flat list. So flat list is you can just say it is nothing but a box which contains couple of number of rows, couple number of columns. It is up to you how many number of rows you want to give, how many number of columns you want to give, and according to that, it adjusts the data which is being passed inside this. Okay, so let's see how we are going to do this. First of all, why, and then second thing, why we are going to use the scroll view. Scroll view is simple. Our application should be scrollable, so we are going to use the scroll view. That's that simple thing. So let's import those scroll view from here. And second thing I'm going to use is flat list. Okay, let's remove this. All right. Grab our application inside the scroll view. And inside this, as I said, I'm going to show our all the photos inside the flat list. So just going to call the flat list over here. Now this is an empty flat list. Of course, we are going to customize it according to our needs. Okay. So very first thing is, as I said, we are going to go specify the number of columns. Number of rows depends upon how many data we do have. Since we have 20, it will automatically be adjusted. But all the very crucial thing is, I want only 2 columns. So in one row, only 2 data is going to be shown. Okay. The data is coming from the data state. All right. And we are going to render the data. Now here the logic comes into the picture. Now, since we have so many data, so many arrays, so many objects inside our data, and we are going to map those objects one by one, extract the URL of an image from that object, extract the username from that object. Okay. So how do we do that? First of all, we need to take every particular JSON object into an action. Then from that JSON object, we need to specify what we are going to take away and what we are going to leave. So let's have a look at the data, what we are getting into the data. It's bigger. Let's keep it right here. Okay. This is the data. Let's come here. Let me just make it right. Okay. So inside this data, we want to target the user array. In the user array, we want to target the URLs. From URLs, we want to target the regular. And the second thing is we are going to target this user array and here the name. Okay. So as we did in the previous application, in our previous use effect function, we'll just decode this same thing. We'll just create a function over here. In this function, let's say item is the name of the variable which will contain each and every object. And this item will be mapped. Now inside this, we'll return this photo because we are calling this component. And now this item contains the whole data, right? So the link will also be extracted with this item itself. And this item, from the items, let me just, so that this array goes away, error goes away, and then, okay. Item is each JSON object. In this item, let's say into the 0th item, we are going to go inside the URLs array. So items dot URLs, and from this URL array, we're going to extract the regular image, right? So item dot URLs dot regular. I hope this is the one, right? Okay, so each item is a JSON object. Then from there, we are going to go inside the URLs array, and then we are going to extract the regular image. And then the next thing is name inside the item. Let's have a look at the data again. We are going to go inside the user array, and from the user array, we're going to go and get the name. All right. So item dot user dot name. Most probably it will work fine. If not, we'll see what happens. All right. I hope everything is done for now. Let's add a couple of stylings inside this photo so that we would be able to see our image. Let me just create a styles. And we're just going to use the style sheet package for that. Style sheet dot create. Here, uh, I'm going to get a image style and a text style, all right? And then the wrapper style. So I don't know, I don't think the text style would need any styling. So first of all, let's go ahead with the wrapper style. So I'd say dot wrapper will be the class. Let's not keep the class. Let's simply keep the wrapper. And inside this, I'm going to get the margin as 10. Padding also, I'll keep the 10. What else we can, why it is giving us the error? Is the error? Unused style detector. Okay, we haven't used it yet. So if I go to the view and as the style, okay, so styles dot wrapper. I'm using this over here. All right. Next thing I'm going to go ahead with the shadow color. The shadow color will be a blackish. I'm going to use the blackish color. Okay, then next thing will be shadow offset. The text, simple shadow offset. Shadow offset. And in this shadow, I'm just going to specify, I don't want any width, so width should be 0. And a little bit of height, let's say 1 pixel is enough. Then it should have some opacity so that it doesn't seems like it is it is something which is really hard. Or then a little bit of radius to make it way better. Let's say 5 pixel will work fine. Elevation so that it doesn't seem to be embedded into the shadow. This also 5 will work fine, and a bit of border radius. Border radius. 6 will be fine. Okay, this is the wrapper style. Then the second, I'm going to get the image style. Here, I don't specify anything. I'll just specify the height of the image as 120, 32, 120. And the next thing I'm going to specify is the width of this image. I'll keep the width up to 120 itself. And every time we hover into the image, make the cursor to pointer. Let's use this style over here. Style, styles, dot. Okay, but the images are still not visible into our application. Why? What is getting wrong? Do we have any errors inside this console? I don't think so. Let's empty this console. Okay, let's try changing something. We're not getting any error, right? If you're not getting any error, not getting any problems, why the image is not being shown? Just look into a little bit. We're having an app header over here. We're having a gallery over here. Just getting the images, storing those images into the data, setting data to the previous state, particular component, then it is mapping the unit data. Also, console log the data. We are showing those data instead of the number of the columns. Let me just console log a data over here. For my reference, let's see if the data is really set inside this particular array or not. Okay, data is not here. Why? Now we understand the problem. Yes, data is not here. But why? Data should be here. I'm mapping a data. Taking each unit, set data. Running this set data, we're using previous state. It is an array of data, each and every data inside that, and we are mapping them into the unit. From the unit, we're mapping them to the data state. Not getting any data. Just try keeping it there. Just try to hit the API again and again. Each and every time we're hitting an API, we're not getting any data inside it. Here, the state which we made. Let's take a look where the things went wrong. For the XIS, we said dot get, putting the data, storing the data inside the res. If I simply say res dot data, this is not defined. Of course, we just get outside the scope. Okay, so we can't see any data. Let's try to debug it. Okay. Having every unit. Just this. Are we getting any data? Save it. Just see the log. Any data here? We were just seeing the data inside our console, but what's happening? Why is it not showing? It's the data. Everything is working fine. We just have a look at this API again. So the rate limit exceeded. Okay. So we hit this API as many times so that the rate limit is being exceeded. And now this API is no longer returning us the data. Okay. So in that case, we need to create one more client key. All right. Let's have a look. API slash dot com. API status. Operational, everything is operational, but it is not sending us the data back. Okay, not a problem. We'll just create one more one. So let's register as developer. I already do have an account. Suppose I'm just going with a demo photo gallery. So guys, if you need help how to create your own client key, just follow these steps. Test, get an application. Okay, I got an application. Somewhere will be my secret key or client ID. Let me just copy this. Let me try them one by one. Paste this client ID. Let's see if it is hitting the data now. Okay, try it in a external browser. Token is invalid, so though we don't need this. I think then in this case, uh, uh, here is that. Okay, get here. access key. Let's change this access key. Here we're getting the data. So let's come back to our application over here. Let's change our access key again. And the moment we do this, we are getting an error. Since we are getting a data inside the log at least, but we are getting an error reading regular. So regular is nothing inside here. How could it be possible? Go inside the zero, go inside the URLs. We do have regular, but why it is showing here and we don't have any regular? Uh, let's talk full. Full will work fine. Let me just show the console of the data here, and then we would be able to, like, we would be able to do that more easily. Okay, I am really confused which one is my data and which one is this data. So it's the same. Data. Okay. Let's look and have a look at the console. This data is nothing. Again, how come it be possible? Really? It is no, nothing. What if I put this console up so that we don't get any confused anymore? We're not getting any data. Okay. Why? There should be a data. Are we doing any mistake? I don't really think so. We're doing everything step by step. We're getting the data, then the response, the mapping, every unit, then when we're setting this data step by step. We have a look. Would you just excuse me for a second? My battery is getting down, so I'll just do one thing. I'll come back by putting my device on charging. Just allow me a second for that. All right, guys, I'm back. Let me just share my screen again. I hope my screen is visible. Okay. Oh, so what are we doing wrong? And all right, so we are having the data over here. Uh, uh, we were having this D as small so that the data was not visible. And now we do have this. Anyway, we do have the data on board. So okay, so how did we do that? We just had this items. We call the XIS API to get the data from this link, and then we map the response each unit into our state. And from where the state is actually mapping the data inside this data state, which is created, and then we call this data over here. Then inside our photo, what we designed over here, we designed a view. Inside this view, we do have an image and we do have a text, and then take after and all these images and text are getting from the props which are being sent over here. The link of that image from the regular and the name from the username. And then after returning the data from there, we're just showing those data inside our application. So if you do have any doubts, please ask into the comment section. Let's keep this as a Q&A session for a bit of time, and then we can wrap up. Guys, if you don't have any doubts, let's wrap up. So this was it for today's session. And now I hope you like this session. If you do like this, please follow Floxus so that we keep doing these kind of sessions in future. Till so let's meet in future. Till then, have a great time. Thank you.